Hello everyone. Okay, so friends, let's continue the next part of the nitrogen metabolism. So friends, if you quickly recall in the yesterday class, we just understand what is nitrogen cycle, how does this particular nitrogen cycle will occur, what are the various processes of the nitrogen cycle. Especially friends, we were talking about the nitrogen fixation. In this particular nitrogen fixation, we understand what are the various ways that we can fix the nitrogen. Later we understand what are the type of bacteria that are involved in the nitrogen fixation. We understand that friends, there are symbiotic bacteria can fix the nitrogen, and free living bacteria also can fix the nitrogen. So friends, later we understand one very important point. What is that? If any bacteria, whether it is a symbiotic bacteria or whether it is a free living bacteria, friends, if it wants to involve in the nitrogen fixation, everyone listen to me, if it wants to involve in the nitrogen fixation, what kind of conditions they have to maintain? Actually, we read that friends, they have to maintain the anaerobic conditions all the time. And I hope you recall what is one of the major anaerobic condition. One of the major anaerobic condition is what friends? Heterocyst. Always keep that in your mind. Now later we understand what is symbiotic relationship. And I told you friends, in the symbiotic relationship, what are the type of genes involved. If you recall, we discussed that majorly two genes are involved. We called nodulin genes and nod genes. Friends, what is the difference between the nodulin and nod genes? I told you that nod genes we can also call as nod factor. Friends, what is one of the major difference? The common similarity is that whether it is a nodulin gene or whether it is a nod gene doesn't matter friends. Both are involved in what? Root nodule formation only. There is a no doubt about it. But the point is very clear. Noduling genes are involved or present in the plant. They are plant genes. Whereas nod genes or nod factors, where they are involved friends, they are exclusively present in the bacteria. That's the most important point. I want you people to read and understand that. Now friends, what are the different type of a nod gene or nod factor? We understand there are two type of nod genes or nod factors are there: common nod gene, host specified nod gene. If you recall my words, if common nod gene and host specified nod gene wants to be active, if you recall my words, I have told you that we require another very important gene. What do we call that particular gene? We will be calling it as a nod D gene. What gene friends? Nod D gene. Why nod D gene is important? As I told you friends, nod D gene is the major gene which is constitutively expressed gene. Please kindly do not forget this particular point at all. Now what's the differences? Common nod gene and host specified nod gene. Common nod genes are present in every single bacteria that is involved in the nitrogen fixation. What are those? I told you to remember the every single gene: A, B, C. But friends, what is the speciality of a host specified nod gene? They are host specific, not present in every single bacteria, present in very few bacteria only. Example: nod P, nod Q, nod H, nod F, nod E and L. And this is the point, or this is the slide which we missed in the yesterday class. Now everyone look into the picture very carefully friends. What is happening first? I want every one of you understand friends. The plant root hair. Plant root hair starts releasing certain chemicals. What I have told you? Chemoattractants. My friends, what are that particular chemoattractants? We discussed that the chemoattractants are flavonoids. And what is the another one we called? Betaines. I hope you recalled. Whenever the flavonoids, understand once again, whenever the flavonoids and betaines, once they released from the root hair, they will travel into the soil and they will activate the bacteria. And I told to all of you very clearly friends, what is the first gene that it is going to activate? Undoubtedly friends, it is going to activate the nod D gene first. Immediately once NOD D gene get activated, common NOD gene, even host specified NOD genes also going to get activated. Please kindly do not forget that particular point. Later what is going to happen? Now the bacteria will come and attaches to the root hair of the plant. This is the very important point I want every one of you to remember. The point is here, my friends, how does the bacteria can attaches to the root hair? With the help of a specific receptor. What do we call that receptor? Lectin receptor. So friends, with the help of lectin receptor, this particular, what we can say, root hair will come, this particular bacteria will come and attaches to the root hair with the help of lectin receptor. Friends, the moment bacteria attaches to the lectin receptors on the root hair, bacteria will cause curling of the root hair. My friends, what is the reason why the bacteria causing curling growth of the root hair? Because in order to enter inside easily, they can make the root hair to become curl. Now you only try to look into this. Yeah, once the root hair got curl, through that curl, everyone look into this picture, the bacteria is continuously entering inside. This is what do we called infection thread. So friends, through this particular infection thread, the bacteria starts traveling continuously. You know what happens during this particular time? Bacteria starts losing their cell wall. What bacteria lose, friends? Bacteria lose their cell wall and it is surrounded by a plant derived membrane. What, friends? Bacteria lose their cell wall and surrounded by a plant derived membrane, which we call it as rhizoids. You can also call it as nodules or vesicles. How does they look like? This is how the nodules will look like. My friends, what is the unique point? Once again, every one of you has to remember here. Nodules contain an important protein. What is that particular protein? We call it as, we called oxygen binding heme protein. Friends, what do we call this particular oxygen binding heme protein? Leg hemoglobin. You have to remember one unique point now. What is our ultimate goal? Our ultimate goal is that we have to fix the nitrogen. If we want to fix the nitrogen, we have to activate the nitrogenase enzyme. What I have told you, if we want to activate the nitrogenase enzyme, oxygen should not present. Why? Because the nitrogenase enzyme get inactivated. Yes or no? In the presence of oxygen. Now what this particular leg hemoglobin will do? Leg hemoglobin having the high affinity towards the oxygen. As a result, my friends, it will protect the nitrogenase enzyme. From where? From the oxygen. By that, nitrogenase enzyme get activated. Now it is ready for the fixation of nitrogen. That is the reason, or this is the reason we have, I mean to say, plant and bacteria associated together and they started the symbiotic relationship. Why? To form the nodule. What the nodule contain? An oxygen binding hemoprotein, which we will be calling it as a leg hemoglobin. A simple and unique point. Now the next one. What is the name of the gene? In the yesterday class I told you what is the name of the gene that is involved in coding all the enzymes which are involved in the nitrogen fixation. We call that particular gene, my friends, as NIF gene. Please kindly do not forget this point. See friends, NIF gene not only involved in coding nitrogenase enzyme, it is involved in coding almost all the enzymes whichever involved in the process of nitrogen fixation. Okay friends, our nitrogenase enzyme is ready now. Now let's try to understand elaboratively how does this particular nitrogenase enzyme involved in fixing of nitrogen. So friends, listen. Before that, I want every one of you to understand one common point. What is that? The nitrogenase enzyme contain two subunits. What are those? One we called dinitrogenase reductase, another one we called dinitrogenase. Always keep that in your mind. So friends, you can remember like this because both names are same, na? Dinitrogenase reductase and dinitrogenase. Instead of Just remember, dinitrogenase reductase, which is one complex, consists of iron sulfur redox center. First point you people has to remember. Second point, this particular dinitrogenase, it consists of molybdenum iron redox center. I want you people to remember these 2 points. It contain iron sulfur, it contain molybdenum iron. Now friends, let's understand how this particular enzyme is going to fix the nitrogen. Friends, here every one of you has to remember few very important points. That is, this is a nitrogenase enzyme. Friends, what is the major function of the nitrogenase enzyme? Fixing the nitrogen into NH3, N2 into NH3. Point every one of you has to remember, friends. Why do you think the fixing of can we fix the N2 into NH3 in a single step? No, we cannot fix in single step. There are 3 steps are there. I want every one of you focus on this. So N2 first, what it is going to give rise to? First, N2 give rise to NH double bond NH. Everyone listen, my friends, it's a very tough concept here, tough point I mean to say. Now in the second step, what is going to happen, friends? This NH double bond NH can be converted into NH2 NH2. Now friends, this particular last and final step, this NH2 NH2 can be converted into 2 molecules of NH3. So now you only try to understand, there are total 3 steps are there, that is fixing the nitrogen into NH3. I want every one of you has to remember the unique point what I am saying right now. Every step we require a pair of electron. Here one pair we require, here one pair we require, here one pair of electron we require. Don't confuse my words. First of all, this is the enzyme, right? Nitrogenase enzyme. How does the enzyme look like? Like this. We all commonly know that every enzyme having a active site where the substrate can come and bind. Now the enzyme is nitrogenase. My friends, who is the substrate here? Substrate only nitrogen, right? Because we want to convert the nitrogen only into NH3. Now if this particular N2 want to attach to this particular active site, we require another pair of electron. Don't confuse my words. See, don't confuse with my words. First, N2 has to attach to the nitrogenase enzyme. For that we require one pair of electron. Once it attaches to the enzyme, what do you have to remember? After attaching to the enzyme, in order to convert the N2 to NH3, we require 3 pairs of electron. Total how many pair? One here, and second, third, fourth. Total 4 pairs of electrons are there. Now first of all, my question is very clear to all of you. Who is the electron donor? That's the question here. My friends, this particular electron can be donated by whom? Who is going to donate this particular electron? This electron is going to donated by ferredoxin. So friends, ferredoxin donate the, see, ferredoxin is in the reduced form, losing of electron. We all know that. See, first of all, what is going to happen? This ferredoxin, upon donating the electron, ferredoxin is donating the electron to iron sulfur protein, because we read, right, nitrogenase enzyme contains iron sulfur protein and it consists of molybdenum iron protein also. Everyone keep it in your mind, iron sulfur protein and molybdenum iron protein. First, ferredoxin send electron, one pair of electron to iron sulfur protein. Now through the iron sulfur protein, electron comes to molybdenum iron complex. From molybdenum iron complex to it comes to N2. Then what happen? First step will occur. That is, N2 can be converted to NH double bond NH. What is the next step? NH double bond NH can be converted to what? NH2 NH2. How? Once again another pair of electron. So ferredoxin donate one more pair of electron to iron sulfur protein to molybdenum iron. It comes to where? NH double bond NH. Then it is converted into NH2 NH2. Once again another pair is coming. Now this pair who will accept? NH2 NH2. Then finally, my friends, NH2 is going to be converted into what? NH3 molecule. This is how N2 can be converted into NH3. Total how many pairs we have used? 3 pairs plus 1 pair. For fix attaching the nitrogen to the nitrogenase enzyme, we require one more pair here. Total how many pair? 4 pair. Now every one of you has to remember, listen my statement very carefully, don't confuse. When one electron, I am talking just one electron, when one electron is passing from where? Passing from iron sulfur protein, it will hydrolyze 2 ATP molecules into 2 ADP molecule. When just one electron passes through iron sulfur protein, it will hydrolyze 2 ATP molecules to 2 ADP molecule. Here total how many electrons are passing, friends? 4 pairs, nothing but 8 electrons are passing. So keep it in your mind. When 8 electrons are passed, 1 electron hydrolyzing the 2 ATP molecules into 2 ADP molecule. So my friends, 8 electrons hydrolyzes 16 ATP molecule into 16 ADP molecule, and there is a release of inorganic phosphate. That's why we will say commonly. What is the common point we say now? We say that nitrogen fixation is a highly energy consuming process, which is absolutely true point. You are only able to see, in order to convert the N2 to NH3 molecule, how many molecules of ATP we spent? We spent 16 molecules of ATP. Is it? Yes. That's why, friends, we called nitrogen fixation is a highly energy consuming process. So we have finished the first step of the nitrogen cycle. What is the first step of the nitrogen cycle we read, friends? That is the nitrogen fixation. Now friends, after the nitrogen fixation, what is the next second step? Atmospheric nitrogen can be converted into NH3, right, or NH4. Now what we gonna do? We are going to do the process of nitrification. What is nitrification? Don't confuse. That is conversion of the NH3 or NH4 to NO2 and NO3. This is what exactly, my friends, we will be calling it as what? Nitrification. Now friends, who is doing this particular process of nitrification? Nitrification can be done by different kinds of bacteria. Okay, don't confuse, my friends. You know what is nitrification? Everyone listen. The oxidation of ammonium salts. First what we have done, my friends? First we converted N2 to NH3. Now what we are doing? We convert this NH3 to NO2. You don't need to remember the equation, don't worry. Then later we will convert the NO2 to NO3. But my friends, the point what you people has to remember, that is conversion of NH3 to NO2 we call nitrification, and conversion of NO2 to NO3 also we called nitrification. No doubt about it. Then do you think every similar bacteria will convert the NH3 to NO2 and NO2 to NO3? No. The bacteria involved are entirely different. This you have to remember for the exam. NH3 can be converted into NO2 by different bacteria, NO2 into NO3 by different bacteria. I want you people compulsory remember this. Nitrosomonas, don't confuse, Nitrococcus, and the bacteria which can convert NO2 to NO3, what is that? Nitrobacter. Very, very important point. Nitrobacter. Then the next one, Nitrococcus. Friends, don't confuse, okay? This is a Nitrococcus. This is a Nitrococcus. So these are all the bacteria which will convert NH3 to NO2, then followed by NO2 to NO3. Friends, this is the second step, that is the nitrification. Then what is the most important step now? Everyone has to answer. Why we have done nitrogen fixation? Why we have done nitrification? Why? The ultimate goal is what? We have to utilize. What we have to utilize? We have to utilize this NH3, NH4, NO2 and NO3 into what? We have to convert them into protein. We have to convert them into amino acid. That is our goal. We call it that particular process as what? Nitrate assimilation. Now you can ask me a question, sir, what will happen if the assimilation is not happening? That is my question. Friends, if the assimilation is not happening, you know what? If this particular nitrate assimilation is not happening, this nitrate and ammonia can be stored. Friends, once they can store, they can cause great toxicity. You know, especially nitrate can act like a potent carcinogen, which means at low dose also it can cause the cancer. That's why we can call potent carcinogen. And friends, when the ammonia stored, you know what is going to happen? Ammonia can be toxic and they interrupt entire electron transport machinery, which is present on the thylakoid membrane also, which is present in the mitochondrial membrane also. Now you will get one doubt. The doubt is that, sir, NH4 plus actually cannot cross the membrane. Then how you are saying that it will cause the great toxicity? How can it cause the great toxicity even it cannot cross the membrane? Now every one of you listen to me very carefully. This NH4 at a high pH, where the pH is high, listen to me, where the pH is high in the stroma or in the matrix or in the cytoplasm. Now this NH4 combine with the OH minus because the pH is high, right? Basic pH. Then it lose the water molecule, convert into NH3. Now NH3 can easily cross the membrane. Now you can ask me, sir, how does the NH3 molecule can cross the membrane? Friends, a very unique point every one of you has to remember for the exam, which was asked also. NH3 basically crossed the membrane via aquaporins. What are aquaporins? Aquaporins are water channels. So every one of you has to remember here that, friends, aquaporins not only transport the water, it can also transport uncharged molecules like urea. It can transport uric acid. It can transport ammonia. It can transport glycerol. It can transport even carbon dioxide also. So here ammonia can transport through the aquaporins and enter into the lumen. Simple point. My friends, in this particular lumen, what is there? NH3 combined with H plus. How? Because in the lumen, what is the pH? The pH is extremely low. Now it combined with H plus and ultimately it is converted into NH4. Now this NH4 will disrupt or interrupt entire photosynthetic machinery also, and my friends, even electron transport chain machinery also. Now friends, what is the unique point every one of you has to remember? Whether it is a nitrate, whether it is a nitrite, whether it is a ammonium, we should not store. Everyone listen, whether it is a nitrite or a nitrate or ammonium, we should not store. Now you can ask me, sir, instead of storing, what we can do? We can convert them into amino acid. Let's see how. First step we called nitrate reduction. I want every one of you understand what I am talking now. Nitrate reduction. Nitrate is what? From here, every single slide, whatever we are going to discuss, my friends, it is extremely important. I want you to pay attention. Nitrate reduction is what? Conversion of NO3 to NO2. Correct na? Now the point is very clear. I am reducing the nitrate. So what is the enzyme involved here? Nitrate reductase enzyme. You don't need to remember the equation. Just listen to me. Nitrate reductase is the major enzyme. The point which every one of you has to remember for the exam, who is the electron donor for this particular nitrate reductase? My friends, for the nitrate reductase, the electron donor will be the NADPH. This is the point every one of you has to remember. Now let's see. I hope just now we read. I am reminding, when you compare, listen my statements once again clearly. When you compare structure of one enzyme with the another enzyme, you can remember it very easily. If you quickly recall the structure of a nitrogenase enzyme, what we read, my friends, we read that it consists of a iron sulfur redox center and molybdenum iron redox center, is it? Now I want you to remember here, what is the structure of nitrate reductase enzyme? Everyone listen. Nitrate reductase enzyme, what is the function of nitrate reductase enzyme? Which is going to reduce the NO3 to NO2. Friends, the nitrate reductase enzyme actually consists of three prosthetic groups. Please kindly do not forget this particular point. How many prosthetic group does it contain? Three prosthetic group. It contains FAD, flavin adenine dinucleotide, heme, and molybdenum associated with an organic compound which we call pterin. This is how the pterin looks like. Okay, you no need to remember the structure, do not worry at all. But what is the point every one of you has to remember, my friends? That is, what does this nitrate reductase is made up of? FAD, heme, molybdenum associated with an organic compound called pterin. Now you look into this. Now what we converted? We converted NO3 to NO2. Now the most important point I want you people to remember here, next enzyme. Now we produced NO2. Now everyone has to remember a unique point here. When compared to the nitrate, that is NO3, NO2 is the most toxic. What, my friends? When compared to the NO3, NO2 is most toxic. Now do you think the plant is going to store the NO2? Not at all. Plant is going to convert the NO2 finally into what, my friends? NH4. Everyone keep this particular point in your mind. Now every one of you listen my statement very carefully here. Friends, once again, don't confuse. You have to remember. Let me explain you. Nitrogenase enzyme. Who is the electron donor for the nitrogenase enzyme? Ferredoxin, right? And just now we read nitrate reductase. Who is the electron donor for the nitrate reductase? NADPH. Next, who is the electron donor for the nitrite reductase? Okay, what is the name of the, sorry, who is the electron donor for the nitrite reductase? The major electron donor, once again, ferredoxin only. Don't forget that. So for the nitrogenase enzyme, nitrite reductase enzyme, for both, electron donor is common, ferredoxin. Only for the nitrate reductase enzyme, electron donor is NADPH. Now see, look into the picture. Ferredoxin is donating the electron to what? Nitrite reductase. What does the nitrite reductase contain? Just now we read that it consists of iron sulfur cluster and it consists of a heme. Very simple point. Now the first electron donated to iron sulfur cluster to heme. Then heme to electron moves to NO2. Then NO2 is converted to, my friends, ammonia. Simple. Friends, what we have done so far? First, we have converted NO3 to NO2. Now NO2 we converted to NH4. Now you tell me, do you think plants are going to store NH4? Not at all. If it stores, it will cause the toxicity. What is the ultimate goal of our assimilation? That is converting them into amino acid. This is what we're gonna do now. So how we are going to assimilate the, listen my statements carefully, how we are going to assimilate the ammonia into amino acid. This process, what do we call? Ammonium assimilation. How can you define? Ammonium assimilation is defined as the incorporation of ammonia into organic compound. What are organic compounds? Nothing but amino acid, nothing but protein. And for the purpose of this chapter will be considered to include the formation of amides and amino acid. Friends, now I want you people to compulsory remember the examples of the enzymes. The primary pathway for this conversion involve the two enzymes, glutamine synthetase enzyme and my friends glutamate synthase enzyme. Friends, what is the difference between the synthetase enzyme and synthase enzyme? Synthetase always use the energy from ATP. Synthase never use the energy from ATP. Then from where it will use the energy? Mostly, my friends, it is going to use the energy from NADPH. Means not from the direct sources like ATP. That point you have to keep it in your mind. Don't confuse. Glutamine synthetase involved in the synthesis of glutamine. Glutamate synthase involved in the synthesis of glutamate. Don't confuse, friends. Now every one of you listen to me. Glutamine synthetase. See, look into the picture, everyone. First of all, my goal is what? Listen to me carefully. My goal is produce the glutamine. So in order to produce the glutamine, what I am doing, you no need to remember the structure at all. I am combining the ammonium with glutamate. Don't confuse. I want to produce the glutamine, but I am combining ammonium with glutamate. Then what is going to happen, friends? Then in the presence of glutamine synthetase enzyme, as we discussed that, it will use the ATP. Then it is going to be converted into what? Glutamine. Simple step. Ammonium combined with glutamate, in the presence of glutamine synthetase enzyme, it is going to convert it into glutamine. Next step, glutamate synthase or GOGAT. Widely we call GOGAT only. Okay. And friends, where this particular GOGAT is present, it is present in the cytosol actually. Now I want every one of you remember the speciality of GOGAT. You know, it can accept the electron from NADH also, friends. Even it can accept the electron from the ferridoxin also. Please kindly do not forget this particular point. Now everyone listen. Ammonium combine. See, what is the first step we discussed here? We discussed that ammonium combined with glutamate giving rise to glutamine. Yes or no? Yes. So ammonium combined with glutamate given rise to glutamine. But what is our goal now? We have to produce glutamate. Now my friends, this particular glutamine combines with 2-oxoglutarate. Once again listen. Glutamine combined with 2-oxoglutarate giving rise to what, my friends? It is going to give rise to 2 glutamates. Always keep that in your mind. What it is going to give rise to? 2 glutamate molecules. Never ever forget this particular statement at all. So what you can understand, actually by using 1 glutamate we are just producing the 2 glutamates. This is the point I want every one of you has to remember, my friends. Okay, ultimately what we have done, we have fulfilled our goal. That is, we converted the ammonium into amino acid. Now the most important step we called transamination reaction. What do you mean by that, friends? We have synthesized amino acids, no doubt. Now we can convert one amino acid into another amino acid. That is only we call transamination. Transfer of the amine group. That's what we call transamination. Now you listen. Glutamate combined with the oxaloacetate, and it is going to give rise to what? Aspartate. Very simple, friends. Now you can ask me a question. Who is the enzyme here? Because we are synthesizing aspartate. Now the enzyme involved is aspartate aminotransferase. Now this amine group can be transferred to the aspartate. You don't need to remember the structure. By that we can convert the glutamate to aspartate. We can convert one amino acid into another amino acid easily. Now another example, glutamine we are converting into asparagine. How? By associating with aspartate. Glutamine converted into aspartate in the presence of an important enzyme. What is the name of the enzyme? Asparagine synthetase. My friends, everyone look into the given picture. Glutamine having how many amine groups? Two amine groups. Correct, na? Now glutamine, upon combining with the aspartate, glutamine donate this amine group to asparagine. Sorry, to the aspartate. Now aspartate converted into what? Asparagine. Simple point. Now glutamine, upon losing one amine group, it is converted into glutamate. Simple point. Friends, this is how we can reduce NO3, NO2, ammonium, and we can finally synthesize what we can say, amino acid. So everyone look into this point. Now what are the steps we have fulfilled in our nitrogen cycle? We have fulfilled nitrogen fixation successfully, and we have done nitrification, that is conversion of NH3 to NO3 and NO2. Yes or no? Now after nitrification, we have done the most important step, that is assimilation. Just now we finished. Now who prepared proteins and amino acid right now? Plants. Upon eating plants, who will get? Animals will get. Simple point, right? Now what are the two steps that we are left in the nitrogen cycle? We left ammonification and we left denitrification. What is ammonification? Friends, when the death of plant, suppose imagine when the plants are died, animals are died, what is going to happen, friends? The dead organic matter, let me tell you everyone, ammonification is the process of breakdown of organic compound into inorganic by decomposition. Friends, organic compounds means what? Amino acid, proteins, lipids, nucleic acid. Yes or no? Now once plant died, animal died, all these compounds can be broken down into what? Inorganic. What are inorganic? Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen. That's all. Who is going to do this? It can be done by fungi, saprotrophs, and bacteria. So what we are doing? We are breaking down the organic into inorganic. Now who is going to use the nitrogen, friends? This is important. Now the nitrogen can be used by fungi, can be used by bacteria for their growth, because they also require proteins, right? They also require amino acids, right? So they will incorporate the nitrogen and they will do their processes. What about the excess nitrogen? My friends, excess nitrogen, once again we are fixing in the soil in the form of ammonia. This process only we call it as ammonification. Now friends, the final step, plant got benefited, animal got benefited, even decomposers also get benefited. Yes or no? Now what is the last step? Because we have taken the nitrogen from the atmosphere, so we have to send back the nitrogen, we have to send nitrogen back to the atmosphere, then only the cycle is going to get completed. Yes or no? Of course yes. Now the conversion of NO3 back to the nitrogen, back to the atmospheric nitrogen, which will complete the nitrogen cycle. So conversion of NO3 back to the N2, nothing but atmospheric nitrogen, complete the nitrogen cycle. This process, that is conversion of NO3 to N2, we call denitrification. Friends, who is going to do this particular denitrification? Denitrifying bacteria. Simple. And for the exam point of view, I am requesting all of you, please kindly remember whatever the examples I kept here, especially Pseudomonas and Thiobacillus denitrificans. These two are very important bacteria involved in the conversion of NO3 to N2. Friends, this is what? Nitrogen cycle. This ends the chapter. This ends the concept nitrogen metabolism, right? So friends, in the tomorrow class, madam is going to cover the techniques, and once again I will meet you in the Saturday class where we are going to continue the plant hormones. Okay, thank you all, thank you very much. I'll see you in the next class. Thank you all.